How to spot an old narcissist. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. How many of you have ever felt like you were walking on eggshells around someone? Like no matter what you did, it was never enough. Maybe you felt drained, manipulated, or even doubted your own reality. That's not a coincidence. That's the effect of a narcissist, especially one who's been playing the game for decades. See, a young narcissist is bold, reckless, and obvious. But an old narcissist, they've had years, decades to refine their craft. They're smoother, more calculated, and even more dangerous. So today, I want to give you the truth, the tools to recognize them, break free, and take back your power. The charm trap. Old narcissists don't come at you with arrogance at first. No, they come in disguised as wise, charming, even generous. They've learned that people lower their defenses around a helpful person. But underneath, it's the same old game. The ego that never ages. Physically, they may have aged, but their ego is still stuck in their prime. They need to be admired. They need to be the center of attention. And they will rewrite history to make themselves look like the hero or the victim, never the villain. Guilt as a weapon. They've mastered emotional blackmail. They'll tell you, after all I've done for you, or you wouldn't have anything if it weren't for me. They manipulate you into feeling responsible for their emotions. Let me make this clear. You are not responsible for their feelings. You never were. The ever-shifting story. With an old narcissist, the past is never solid. They twist facts, rewrite events, and suddenly you remember things wrong. That's called gaslighting. They do it because if they control your reality, they control you. But once you see the pattern, game over. The fake humility act. Oh, I don't need recognition, but they do. I just care about helping people, but they always make it about them. They disguise arrogance as humility because they've learned it works better. But pay attention. Real humility doesn't demand credit. The never-ending drama. If there's a peace, they stir the pot. If there's no enemy, they create one. They've spent decades thriving on chaos, and without it, they feel empty. But here's what I need you to understand. Their chaos does not have to be your reality. The fear of being exposed. Old narcissists are terrified of one thing, being seen for who they really are. They know they've built their lives on manipulation, and if people wake up, it's over. That's why they attack anyone who questions them. But you don't have to play their game anymore. Take your power back. You are stronger than their manipulation. You are wiser than their mind games. And the moment you stop seeking validation from them, you win. So today I challenge you, trust your instincts. Set boundaries without guilt. Walk away from toxicity, no matter how much history there is. Because at the end of the day, your peace, your happiness, and your power are worth more than their approval. And when you realize that, that's when you truly become free. Charm is a disguise. Have you ever met someone who just seemed too good to be true? The way they talk, the way they make you feel like you're the most important person in the room. They shower you with compliments. They make you laugh. They even seem to understand you in ways no one else has. And for a while you buy into it. You think, wow, this person is different. This person really cares. But let me tell you something. You are not dealing with kindness. You are dealing with a strategy. An old narcissist knows that blatant arrogance doesn't work on everyone. They've spent years learning how to mask their true nature under layers of charm, wisdom, and generosity. They don't come at you with aggression. They come at you with seduction, emotional seduction. They say all the right things. They act like a mentor, like a guide, like someone who just wants to help you. But the real question is, what's the price? Because there's always a price. That charm, that kindness, that I just want what's best for you act, it's bait. They build you up only so they can break you down later. And when that moment comes, you'll be so entangled in their web that you'll second guess yourself before you ever question them. Listen, real confidence doesn't need to be dressed up in charm. Real wisdom doesn't need to constantly remind you how wise it is. When someone is genuinely good, you feel it in your gut, not just because they told you. But a narcissist, they manufacture that feeling. They study you. They learn your vulnerabilities, your desires, your fears. And before you even realize it, you're hooked. And that's the real trick. They don't just want your admiration, they want control. They want to be the person who defines how you see yourself. And if they can do that, they own you. So let me give you a reality check. If someone's charm feels too perfect, if they make you feel like the only person in the world, if they come into your life and suddenly everything feels like a dream, stop, take a step back. Look at their actions, not their words. Because an old narcissist never approaches as the villain. They always show up as the hero. And by the time you see the mask slip, they've already rewritten your reality. Your job, don't fall for it. Their ego never ages. Age brings wisdom, right? People grow, they evolve, they learn, but not a narcissist. No, a narcissist is stuck in time, not physically, but mentally. Their ego is still in its prime. They could be 60, 70, 80 years old, but inside they still see themselves as the center of the universe. They still crave admiration like they're 25 and running the show. And if they don't get it, they become bitter, resentful, and manipulative. They'll tell you stories about the good old days, when they were successful, when they were admired, when they had control. And here's what you need to understand. They're not reminiscing. They're trying to pull you into their narrative. Because in their mind, they are still that unstoppable force. They can't accept that time has moved on. They can't accept that people see through their act. So instead, they rewrite reality to keep their ego intact. They'll say things like, people used to respect me. People used to listen to me. Notice that? It's never about how they treated others. It's always about how others treated them. An old narcissist doesn't age gracefully. They age bitterly. They become obsessed with proving they are still relevant, still powerful, still worthy of admiration. And if they can't get it naturally, they'll demand it. They'll guilt trip you. They'll act like victims. They'll remind you of everything they've ever done for you. Not because they care, because they need to feel important. And here's the real kicker. If you ever challenge them, if you ever imply that they're not the unstoppable force they once were, they will rage. They will lash out. They will cut you down. They will do anything to protect the illusion. Because to them, reality isn't what's true. Reality is whatever keeps their ego intact. Your job? Don't feed the illusion. They use guilt as control. How many times have you done something for someone out of guilt? How many times have you felt obligated to keep someone happy? If you've ever had that gut-wrenching feeling that you owe someone for everything they've done for you, guess what? You've been played. An old narcissist has mastered this technique. They don't ask for things directly. They don't demand. They imply. They make you feel like a terrible person for even thinking about saying no. They'll say, after all I've sacrificed for you. They'll say, I guess I just don't matter anymore. They'll say, I was there for you when no one else was. And the moment you start feeling guilty, they've won. Because guilt is a powerful tool. It makes you act against your best interest. It makes you prioritize their needs over your own. It makes you believe that you're the problem. But here's the truth. A good person doesn't need to remind you of their sacrifices. A loving person doesn't weaponize the past to control the present. A narcissist does. Because guilt keeps you small. Guilt keeps you compliant. Guilt keeps you trapped in a cycle where you're always proving yourself, always making up for some imaginary debt. And if you don't break that cycle, you will never be free. Your job, recognize the manipulation, release the guilt, walk away without explanation. They rewrite history. You ever had a conversation with someone and walked away questioning your own memory? Have you ever thought, wait a minute, I know that's not how it happened, but somehow they convinced you otherwise? That's not forgetfulness. That's not a misunderstanding. That's called gaslighting. And an old narcissist has spent a lifetime perfecting it. They don't just lie. They reconstruct reality. They reshape the past to fit their agenda. And the scariest part, they do it with so much confidence, so much certainty, that you start to doubt yourself. They'll tell you you're too sensitive. They'll tell you you're overreacting. They'll tell you you remember things wrong. And because they've done this for decades, they make you feel like the crazy one. Why do they do this? Because if they can control the past, they can control you. Think about it. If you start believing that their version of events is the truth, then what happens? You lose trust in your own judgment. You become dependent on them to tell you what's real. And once they've got you there, they can manipulate you into anything. And it doesn't stop with just personal stories. They rewrite history on a grand scale. They'll tell you how they were always the victim, how everyone turned against them unfairly, how they've been misunderstood their whole life. But pay attention, their stories always paint them as the hero or the victim, never the villain. Here's what I need you to hear right now. Your memory is not the problem. Their manipulation is. Your job, trust yourself. Write your own version of reality. Never let someone else tell you what you lived through. They fake humility. You ever met someone who says, "Oh, I don't care about recognition," but then sulks when they don't get praised? You ever see someone say, "I'm just doing this to help," but somehow the spotlight always ends up on them? That's the old narcissist's favorite trick, false humility. They've learned that a blatant arrogance turns people off. So instead of demanding attention, they play the role of the selfless one. They'll say things like, "I don't do this for the applause," but they're watching closely to see who's clapping. They'll act like they hate drama, but somehow they're always in the center of it. They'll pretend to be humble, but when someone else gets credit, they can't stand it. See, humility isn't about what you say, it's about what you do when no one is watching. A truly humble person doesn't need to tell the world how humble they are. They don't need to broadcast their good deeds. But an old narcissist, oh, they need the recognition. They feed on admiration. And if they don't get it, they'll either make you feel guilty for not giving it, or they'll cut you down so they can shine brighter by comparison. And here's the real kicker. If you ever call them out, they'll turn it on you. "I can't believe you'd think that of me. After everything I've done." That's the trap. They want you to doubt yourself before you ever doubt them. Your job, look at actions, not words. Real humility doesn't demand validation. They thrive on chaos. You ever notice how some people just can't let things be peaceful? How no matter what's going on, they find a way to stir things up? That's not an accident. That's an old narcissist's survival mechanism. See, when life is calm, when things are steady, when people are happy, they feel powerless, because in chaos, they can control the narrative. But in peace, people have time to think, to reflect, to see the truth. And they can't have that. So they create problems. They stir up old arguments. They plant seeds of doubt. They pit people against each other. Because if you're too busy putting out their fires, you're not questioning their behavior. And the worst part, they make it look like they're the victim. They act like drama follows them, like they're always being wrong, like the world is against them. But let me tell you something, the common denominator in all their chaos is them. If someone's life has been one long soap opera, if every relationship ends in disaster, if every job was unfair, if every friend turned on them, you need to ask yourself, is it really the world? Or is it them? Your job? Step away from the chaos. Let them create storms for themselves, but don't get caught in their reign. They fear being exposed. There's one thing an old narcissist fears more than anything, being seen for who they really are. They've spent their entire life crafting an image, a mask, a carefully controlled version of themselves that the world sees. And the moment you start seeing through it, that's when they get desperate. They'll attack you, they'll slander you, they'll turn people against you. They'll do everything in their power to discredit you, because if they can't control you, they will try to destroy you. Why? Because their entire identity is built on a lie. And if you expose that lie, they have nothing left. They can't afford to be wrong. They can't afford to be seen as anything less than perfect. So they manipulate, they play the victim, they shift the blame. They make you look like the problem so they don't have to face their own reflection. And here's the hardest truth. You will never get an apology. You will never get closure. You will never get them to admit what they've done. But you don't need it, because once you see them for what they are, you win. Once you stop seeking validation from them, you take your power back. And when you walk away, when you refuse to play the game, when you live your life on your terms, that's their worst nightmare. Because the one thing a narcissist can't handle is being irrelevant. Your job, walk away, set yourself free, and never look back. There it is, the full expansion of all 7 key points. This is your blueprint to spotting and breaking free from an old narcissist's grip, Take your power back. Listen to me. There's one truth you need to walk away with today. You are stronger than their manipulation. For too long, you've been questioning yourself. For too long, you've been tangled in their web of guilt, gaslighting, and control. But today that ends. Because now you see the game. Now you know the pattern. Now you hold the power. An old narcissist wants one thing: to keep you trapped in their world. They want you doubting your reality, walking on eggshells, and seeking their approval. Because the moment you stop, the moment you trust your instincts, the moment you break free, they lose. So here's my challenge to you. Choose yourself. Choose peace over chaos. Choose truth over manipulation. Choose to walk away without guilt, without fear, without looking back. Because your life is not theirs to control. Your mind is not theirs to twist. Your energy is not theirs to drain. You owe them nothing, but you owe yourself everything. So go out there and live unapologetically, powerfully, and free, because that's the one thing they never wanted you to do. Your time is now. Own it.